I'm Sarah Henderson, 34, a senior investment executive who's paid my parents' mortgage for 3 years. Despite 60-hour work weeks, I've never missed our family Christmas, always funding the entire celebration. Last Tuesday, Mom called with news that shattered my world. "We all agreed you're not welcome at Christmas this year," she said sarcastically. Her words broke something inside me. After years of financial support and sacrifice, I made a decision that would change everything. If you're watching this story unfold, let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that subscribe button if family drama like mine makes you feel less alone in your struggles. Growing up in Lakeside, Ohio, I never imagined I'd be bankrolling my family's lifestyle. My childhood was typical middle-class American. Dad, Robert, worked at the local manufacturing plant. Mom, Barbara, taught part-time at an elementary school, and my younger brother, Eric, and I shared a modest but comfortable home. We weren't wealthy, but we had enough. Everything changed during my junior year of high school, when the recession hit our town hard. Dad's company downsized, cutting his hours in half. Mom took on more substitute teaching, but it wasn't enough. I still remember the hushed arguments behind closed doors, the unopened bills piling up on the kitchen counter, and the gradual disappearance of small luxuries we once took for granted. While my parents struggled, I doubled down on academics. Studying became my escape and my hope for a better future. The guidance counselor at Lakeside High recognized my potential and helped me apply for scholarships. When I received a full ride to the Wharton School of Business, my parents cried with relief. They couldn't afford to contribute a dime to my education, but I never resented that fact. I understood their circumstances. College was transformative. I thrived in the competitive environment, graduated summa cum laude, and landed an entry-level position at Meridian Investments in Chicago. My starting salary was more than my parents' combined income, and for the first time, I could breathe financially. I lived frugally in a tiny studio apartment, saved aggressively, and sent money home whenever possible. By 25, I had paid off my small student loans and received my first significant promotion. That same month, Dad called with news that their furnace had died during a brutal Ohio winter. Without hesitation, I transferred $3,000 for a replacement. The gratitude in his voice was overwhelming, and something shifted in our relationship. I was no longer just their daughter. I had become their safety net. As my career accelerated, so did my financial support. Monthly transfers became a regular occurrence, helping with everything from car repairs to property taxes. I never questioned this arrangement. In my mind, I was simply returning the love and care they had given me growing up. 3 years ago, disaster struck. Dad suffered a minor heart attack, resulting in mountains of medical bills despite their insurance. Simultaneously, the bank initiated foreclosure proceedings on their home of 20 years. During a teary phone call, Mom confessed they were 6 months behind on their mortgage and had nowhere to go. I flew home the next day and made a decision that would profoundly alter our family dynamic. I purchased their home outright, restructuring it so they could continue living there without rent while I took over the mortgage payments. At the time, it seemed like the perfect solution. They maintained their dignity and home while I gained a tax benefit and investment property. Our arrangement was simple. I paid the $3,000 monthly mortgage, property taxes, and insurance. They covered utilities and maintenance. Every Christmas, I funded an elaborate family celebration, flying home with expensive gifts and arranging professional catering. Last year alone, the holiday cost me nearly $10,000. But seeing their joy made every penny worthwhile. Meanwhile, my brother Eric moved back home after dropping out of community college. Unlike me, he struggled to find direction, bouncing between part-time jobs and unemployment. My parents never pushed him to contribute financially, and I noticed their different expectations for us. While I carried the financial burden, Eric received endless patience and understanding for his journey of self-discovery. Recently, I earned a promotion to senior vice president at Meridian, nearly doubling my already substantial salary. The position came with increased responsibilities and longer hours, but I managed monthly visits home, never missing important family events despite the 5-hour commute from my Chicago apartment. Dad's health remained precarious, with ongoing cardiac issues requiring expensive medications. Mom quietly retired from teaching, citing the stress of modern education, but never acknowledging they no longer needed her income thanks to my support. I paid for Dad's prescriptions without complaint, added them to my cell phone family plan, and even funded a kitchen renovation they'd wanted for years. The first hints of resentment emerged subtly. Mom's comments about my fancy Chicago lifestyle carried an edge, and Eric's eye rolling when I mentioned work challenges suggested my problems weren't real. Dad, always the peacemaker, would change the subject whenever tensions rose. Still, I dismissed these warning signs, attributing them to normal family dynamics rather than the troubling undercurrent they represented. Despite everything, I loved them fiercely and believed they appreciated my sacrifices. The mortgage statements arriving monthly in my name served as concrete reminders of my commitment to keeping our family secure. Little did I know how quickly that security would crumble with a single phone call. Last Thanksgiving provided the first clear warning that something was seriously wrong in our family dynamic. I had taken a red-eye flight after closing a massive client account, arriving sleep-deprived but determined to participate in our traditions. When I entered the kitchen to help with preparations. Mom barely acknowledged me, continuing her conversation with Eric's new girlfriend, Jennifer. "Sarah's finally graced us with her presence," Mom said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I told Jennifer we shouldn't expect you until dinner was actually on the table." The comment stung, especially since I had rearranged multiple meetings to arrive by noon. Jennifer, a local dental hygienist with a perpetually judgmental expression, looked me up and down. "Love your blazer," she said. "Is that what all the corporate types wear these days? Must be nice to afford designer clothes." My blazer was from a department store rack, purchased during a rare lunch break. I swallowed, the urge to defend myself, and offered to mash the potatoes. Throughout dinner, subtle digs continued. Eric mentioned a former classmate who had sold out to corporate America, looking pointedly in my direction. Dad remained silent, focusing intensely on his turkey. When I described a challenging project that had kept me working late, Mom interrupted. "We get it, Sarah. You're very important and busy. Some of us just live simple lives focused on family rather than money." Her words hung in the air like a physical barrier between us. The implication was clear. My career success had somehow made me less committed to family. I felt a tightness in my chest but pushed it down, changing the subject to Dad's upcoming fishing trip 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. Eric called, asking for a small loan of $2,000 for a car repair. When I gently inquired about his job search progress, the conversation exploded. "Not everyone wants to be a soul-sucking corporate drone," he snapped. "Some of us are looking for meaningful work, not just a paycheck." "Eric, I'm just asking. Because this is the third emergency this year," I said carefully. "I'm happy to help, but..." "What, you're keeping score now? Must be nice sitting in your luxury apartment judging everyone else's choices." I transferred the money immediately after our call, then sat in my kitchen feeling hollow. My luxury apartment was a one-bedroom condo I'd purchased after years of saving, with a view of another apartment building rather than the lake. The furniture was mostly secondhand, as I funneled the majority of my disposable income to my family. Mom called the next day ostensibly to thank me for helping Eric, but quickly pivoted to criticism. "You know, Sarah, not everyone measures success in dollars and titles. Your brother has a sensitive soul. Your materialistic values hurt him deeply." Yesterday, I bit back a reminder that my materialistic values were currently funding their lifestyle. Instead, I apologized for upsetting Eric and promised to be more considerate. Despite these tensions, I threw myself into Christmas planning with renewed determination. Perhaps a perfect holiday would restore our connection. I ordered an extravagant catering package from Riverside Gourmet, the finest restaurant in their town, arranging a full-service dinner. I ordered prime rib, lobster tails, and a professional server so Mom wouldn't have to lift a finger. The shelter where Mom occasionally volunteered was struggling to provide Christmas dinners for homeless families. In our family's name, I donated $5,000 to fund their turkey dinner program, knowing how much Mom valued community service. I imagined her proud smile when she received the acknowledgement letter. Between client meetings, I ordered thoughtful gifts, a specialized fishing gear set for Dad, the designer kitchenware Mom had been eyeing for months, and for Eric, the latest gaming system he couldn't afford. I even selected a nice bracelet for Jennifer, hoping to warm our frosty relationship. My best friend Madison listened patiently to my elaborate Christmas plans over lunch. "Sarah," she said gently, "when was the last time your family did something similarly thoughtful for you?" The question caught me off guard. "They're going through a rough time," I defended. "Dad's health, Eric's job situation. They've been going through a rough time for 8 years. Madison pointed out, "At what point do you acknowledge the imbalance?" I dismissed her concerns, but her words lingered uncomfortably. That evening, I texted Mom about my flight details for Christmas Eve, receiving only a curt reply in response. When I called Dad to check on his health, his usual warmth seemed dimmed. Our conversation stuttered through awkward silences. "Is everything okay, Dad?" I finally asked. "Just fine, sweetheart," he replied. But the strain in his voice told a different story. "Your mother's a bit stressed about the holidays, that's all." Work pressures mounted as year-end deadlines approached. I regularly stayed at the office until midnight, fueled by coffee and determination to clear my schedule for a full week off at Christmas. This rare vacation had been approved months in advance, a precious opportunity to reconnect with my family, without email interruptions. I sent Mom cheerful updates about the catering menu, asking for her input on dessert options. Her responses grew increasingly delayed and curt. When I shared exciting news about my holiday bonus, which would cover a bathroom renovation they'd mentioned wanting, she replied only with, "Must be nice." My calls went increasingly to voicemail. Eric stopped responding altogether. Only Dad maintained contact, though our conversations felt strained. Still, I continued shopping, wrapping, and planning, clinging to the belief that any family tensions would dissolve in the magic of Christmas morning. The Sunday before my scheduled departure, I received a text from Jennifer of all people. "You might want to call your mom about Christmas plans." A flutter of anxiety rose in my chest as I dialed the number I knew by heart, unaware that this call would permanently alter the course of our family. "We all agreed you're not welcome at Christmas," Mom said, her voice dripping with sarcasm that made her words even more devastating. "We thought you'd be too busy anyway." The phone. I felt suddenly heavy in my hand. I had stepped away from a critical year-end meeting to take her call, expecting to confirm final holiday arrangements. Instead, her statement struck like a physical blow, leaving me momentarily speechless. "What do you mean?" I finally managed, my voice barely audible even to myself. "Who agreed about what?" "Eric, Jennifer, your father, and I," she replied matter-of-factly. "We had a family discussion last night. We decided it would be better if you didn't come home for Christmas this year." The casual way she described their family meeting, one I hadn't been invited to participate in, made my stomach twist painfully. The explicit clarification that Eric's girlfriend qualified as family, while I apparently did, not only deepen the wound. "Mom, I've had this time off approved for months. I've already bought my plane ticket. I don't understand." "Sarah, let's be honest," she interrupted. "You're always distracted when you're here, always checking your phone for emails. Eric says, it makes everyone uncomfortable, like we're not important enough for your full attention." Her words conjured memories of my last visit when I'd received an urgent client call during dinner and stepped away for 7 minutes, after which I'd apologized profusely. Was that truly enough to warrant exclusion from Christmas? "I promise." "I won't bring my laptop this time," I said, hating the pleading tone creeping into my voice. "I've arranged everything so I can be fully present." Mom sighed heavily, the sound achingly familiar from childhood disappointments. "It's not just that. It's the way you show up with your designer clothes and expensive gifts, making the rest of us feel inadequate. Jennifer says, it feels like you're showing off, trying to prove you're better than us." The accusation was so absurd I nearly laughed. I'd specifically downplayed my wardrobe at home, often wearing the same jeans and sweaters throughout my visits. As for the gifts, I'd chosen each one with careful consideration of their interests and needs. "That's not my intention at all," I protested. "I just want to give you all things that would make you happy." "Well, what would make us happy is a simpler Christmas without the pressure of your extravagance." Dad hadn't spoken a single word during this exchange. His silence hurt almost more than Mom's accusations. "Dad, I ventured, "Are you there? Do you feel this way too?" A muffled sound indicated he was indeed present, followed by a throat clearing. "Sarah, honey," he began, then faltered. No defense followed, no contradiction of Mom's harsh assessment, just uncomfortable silence. My eyes burned with unshed tears. "See?" I whispered. "Anyway," Mom continued briskly, as if we were discussing something as mundane as a change in dinner plans. "The catering you arranged can still happen." That was very thoughtful. The casual expectation that I would still finance their Christmas celebration while being explicitly uninvited struck me with stunning clarity. This wasn't about my presence being uncomfortable. They simply wanted my financial contributions without the inconvenience of including me. "And of course," she added, "you can still send the gifts if you want to. We just think it's better for everyone this way." A strange numbness spread through me as the full picture emerged. For years, I'd interpreted their acceptance of my financial support as an expression of family trust and interdependence. Now, I recognized it for what it truly was: entitlement. "Mom," I asked quietly, "did it occur to any of you that I might be hurt by this decision?" The pause that followed spoke volumes. "Sarah, you're a grown woman with a successful career and your own life. We assumed you'd understand and probably be relieved not to make the trip. You're always talking about how busy you are." My eyes drifted to the framed photo on my desk, the four of us smiling at a lakeside picnic years ago, before money complicated everything. The people in that photo felt like strangers now. "I have to go," I said finally, unable to continue the conversation without breaking down completely. "Don't be dramatic, Sarah," Mom replied. "It's just one Christmas. You can come for Easter if your schedule allows." I hung up without responding, set my phone on silent, and somehow made it to the bathroom before the tears came. Locked in a stall, I pressed my fist against my mouth to muffle the sobs that tore through me. Colleagues passed by, chatting about holiday plans, oblivious to my world collapsing behind the bathroom door. Hours later, I sat alone in my darkened apartment, surrounded by carefully wrapped Christmas presents addressed to people who had just rejected me. The Christmas tree I'd put up the previous weekend, thinking I'd only see it for a few days before my trip, now seemed to mock my naivety. My phone showed multiple missed calls from Madison, but I couldn't bring myself to explain what had happened. The betrayal cut deeper with every passing hour as I replayed years of memories through this new lens. How long had they resented me while accepting my money? How many family gatherings had included private jokes at my expense? What did they say about me when I left the room? Most painful was the recognition that this couldn't have been a sudden decision. The family meeting suggested premeditation, discussions behind my back, a building consensus that I was an unwelcome intruder rather than a beloved daughter and sister. I pulled out the mortgage statement for my parents' home, staring at the outstanding balance of nearly $300,000. For 3 years, I'd faithfully sent payments without complaint, viewing it as an investment in our family's security and happiness. Now, those payments felt like entries in a ledger of exploitation. Sleep eluded me that night as I cycled through shock, grief, and eventually a simmering anger that would fundamentally alter our family dynamic forever. Morning light filtered through my blinds, finding me still awake, eyes swollen from crying. Something had shifted during those dark hours. Beneath the hurt, I showered, mechanically made coffee, and called Madison. "They did what?" She gasped after I recounted yesterday's conversation. "And they still expect you to pay for everything?" "Apparently," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Sarah, I've kept quiet for years, watching you bend over backwards for them, but this crosses every line. They're using you." Her bluntness would have offended me yesterday. Today, it resonated with my emerging clarity. "I know," I said simply. "I've been allowing it. So what are you going to do?" I glanced at my laptop, where I'd spent the pre-dawn hours reviewing financial records. "I'm going to stop." Madison's silence conveyed her surprise at my newfound determination. "You're right," I continued. "This has been happening for years. I just couldn't see it because I needed to believe I was valued for more than my wallet." After our call, I opened my planner and methodically canceled my vacation request. Then I made another call to Riverside Gourmet. I need to cancel the Christmas catering order for the Henderson residence, I told the manager. Of course, Miss Henderson. Since it's within our 10-day cancellation period, we can only refund 50% of your deposit. That's fine. $3,000 seemed a small price for the clarity I was gaining. My next call was to Lakeside Community Shelter, where I'd made the turkey dinner donation. Hello, this is Sarah Henderson. I donated $5,000 for your Christmas meal program recently. Yes, Miss Henderson, we're so grateful. Your family's generosity will provide meals for over 70 families. I hesitated only briefly. I'd like to make a change to that donation. Please remove my family's name from the acknowledgement. I'd prefer it to be anonymous, and I made a split-second decision. I'd like to double the amount. Can you accommodate more families? The coordinators delighted. Response confirmed they could indeed expand their program with additional funding. I scheduled the transfer, a strange lightness replacing some of the heaviness in my chest. By mid-morning, I had arrived at First National Bank, where I'd financed my parents' mortgage. I'd like to discuss options regarding a property I'm financing, I told the mortgage specialist, sliding over the paperwork. The specialist, Allison, reviewed the documents carefully. You've been paying this mortgage for 3 years without any issues, Miss Henderson. What would you like to change? I need to understand what happens if I stop making payments. Allison's professional demeanor didn't falter, though her eyes reflected surprise. Since you're the sole owner and borrower, you'd be facing potential foreclosure after 3 missed payments. It would significantly impact your credit score. May I ask if you're experiencing financial difficulties? No, I replied truthfully. This is about setting boundaries. For the next hour, Allison walked me through various scenarios. I learned I'd paid over $70,000 toward the principal and interest, not including property taxes and insurance. I took detailed notes on options for transitioning the mortgage to my parents or selling the property. Back at my apartment, I composed a carefully worded email to my family. Dear Mom, Dad, and Eric, in light of our conversation yesterday, I'm making some changes to our arrangements. The Christmas catering has been canceled. Your mortgage payment will not be made in January. I've arranged for all future mortgage statements to be forwarded directly to you so you can decide how to proceed. I've respected your decision regarding Christmas. I hope you'll respect mine regarding financial support. Sarah, short, factual, without emotional appeals, I pressed send before I could reconsider. Then I set up an automatic email response for any further messages from their addresses. I'm currently unavailable. For urgent matters, please contact me after January 2nd. A similar message went on my voicemail. I then did something unprecedented. I notified my assistant I would be taking a personal day effective immediately. Instead of my typical reaction to family conflict, working myself to exhaustion, I booked a massage at the spa near my apartment. As the therapist worked on my tensed shoulders, I made another decision. Opening my phone, I searched for last-minute vacation packages. 20 minutes later, I had booked a Christmas week at a beachfront resort in Maui. The cost was extravagant, but for once, I would spend on myself what I typically spent on others. The confirmation email arrived with a photo of palm trees and turquoise water, a stark contrast to the Ohio winter I'd expected to endure. Shopping for summer clothes in December felt surreal. As I selected swimsuits and sundresses, my phone remained blessedly silent in my purse. Only when I stopped for lunch did I finally check it. 12 missed calls, 27 text messages, 5 voicemails. The first text was from Mom, sent at 12:07 p.m. What do you mean the catering is canceled? Call me immediately. Eric's message followed. Is this some kind of joke? Mom's freaking out. Dad's single text simply read, Please call, sweetheart. The messages escalated in urgency throughout the morning, culminating in Mom's most recent, You can't just stop paying the mortgage. What are we supposed to do? I set my phone down beside my salad, a strange calm settling over me. For years, I jumped at their every summons, rearranging my life to accommodate their needs and emergencies. Today, their panic produced not anxiety, but a quiet affirmation that I was finally taking necessary action. The hostess approached with concern. Is everything all right with your meal? I realized I was smiling. Everything's perfect. Actually, I just made a long overdue decision. As I finished my lunch, I sent a single group text in response to their barrage of messages. I'm taking time to process your decision about Christmas. I'll be unavailable until after the new year. The mortgage, office has information if you need it. Then I turned off notifications from their numbers and continued shopping. Shopping for my first solo vacation, each purchase was a small act of liberation from patterns established long ago. By evening, my phone had become a repository of family panic. I reviewed the messages and voicemails with detached interest, like an anthropologist studying the collapse of a dysfunctional ecosystem. Eric's voicemail vibrated with indignation. Real mature, Sarah, punishing everyone because you got your feelings hurt. Some of us actually need that house, unlike you with your fancy condo. Call mom before she has a breakdown. His casting me as the villain was predictable but still stung. The subtle acknowledgement that they needed the house I provided, without any expression of gratitude, only reinforced my decision. Mom's messages evolved from commanding to manipulative. Sarah Elizabeth Henderson, you call me this instant, progressed to, I don't understand why you're being so cruel. We only thought you'd be happier not having to travel when you're so busy. Dad, typically the mediator, left a voicemail that nearly broke my resolve. Sweetheart, I know you're upset. Can we please talk about this? Your mother didn't mean it the way it sounded. I sat on my couch, wrapped in the throw blanket Madison had given me last Christmas, and drafted responses I never sent. In each one, I outlined years of one-sided giving, of rearranged work schedules, of sacrificed relationships and opportunities. Instead, I closed my laptop and poured a glass of wine, honoring my commitment to unavailability. The surprise came just before midnight, a text from Jennifer. I need to clarify something. I never said you were showing off with gifts. That was Eric's interpretation. For what it's worth, I told them excluding me was wrong. Her unexpected honesty prompted my first reply. Thank you for telling me, Jennifer. Eric's been telling everyone you're just having a rich girl tantrum. I think you should know they've been using your Christmas money to buy a boat. The revelation should have hurt, but instead, it crystallized my growing certainty. The family. Narrative painted me as an emotionally distant provider whose only value was financial. The boat explained Eric's sudden interest in fishing and Dad's evasiveness when I'd asked about their summer plans. Morning brought emails from distant relatives and family friends. Apparently, Mom had wasted no time spreading her version of events, that I had abandoned the family without warning, jeopardizing their home out of spite. Cousin Rachel wrote, Everyone's talking about what you did. Aunt Barbara is devastated. How could you be so heartless at Christmas? I drafted a simple reply. There are multiple sides to every story. I've supported the family financially for years, including paying their mortgage. Recent events have necessitated changes to that arrangement. I attached documentation, mortgage statements, canceled checks, transfer records totaling over $100,000 in family support over the past 3 years. No emotional appeals, just evidence. Rachel's shocked response came. Quickly, I had no idea. Barbara always said, You helped a little with bills sometimes. The family narrative was unraveling with minimal effort on my part. By afternoon, my parents had received their first direct communication from the mortgage company. Dad called 7 times in succession. When I didn't answer, he texted, The bank says we need to make a $3,200 payment by the 1st or they'll start proceedings. We don't have that kind of money. Please, Sarah. The familiar guilt rose, then subsided as I remembered Madison's words. They've been going through a rough time for 8 years. Their financial emergency was as manufactured as their Christmas exclusion was deliberate. I forwarded Dad the contact information for the mortgage specialist I'd spoken with, adding, Only Allison can discuss payment plans or refinancing options. Eric's girlfriend continued her unexpected role as informant. Just so you know, your mom tried to drive to Chicago today to confront you. Eric talked her out of it, saying you'd probably call the police. They're talking about telling your company how you've mentally abandoned your family. The threat might once have terrified me. Today it seemed almost comical. My company was aware of my family obligations. I'd been transparent about my financial commitments during salary negotiations. Any attempt to weaponize my workplace against me would only embarrass them. Thank you for the warning, I texted. Jennifer, may I ask why you're telling me these things? Her reply came quickly. Eric and I broke up last night. I got tired of watching him take advantage of people. First you, now his friend Logan, who's letting him crash on his couch temporarily. It's a pattern. For days after my email, the first genuine attempt at reconciliation arrived from Dad. Sarah, I understand you're hurt. I should have spoken up during that call. The truth is, it was Eric who pushed for you not to come, saying, everyone would have a more relaxed holiday without walking on eggshells around you. Your mother agreed because she always sides with him. I went along because I always go along. That's on me, and I'm sorry. His honesty, though appreciated, highlighted the family dynamic I'd enabled for years. Dad's passive acceptance, Mom's enabling of Eric, Eric's resentment of my success, all patterns that my financial support had allowed to flourish unchecked. As Christmas approached, reports filtered in through extended family. Mom and Eric were scrambling to arrange a last-minute holiday gathering. The catering company had refused their attempt to reinstate the order, under Eric's name when they couldn't provide payment. The community shelter had sent a lovely acknowledgement for my anonymous donation, causing confusion when Mom attempted to claim credit at her volunteer meeting. Each development confirmed what I had finally accepted. My family had come to see my support not as generous assistance, but as an entitlement. Removing it had forced a confrontation with reality they'd avoided. For years, the evening before my flight to Maui, Mom made her most dramatic move yet by showing up at my apartment building. The doorman called up, "Miss Henderson, there's a Barbara Henderson insisting on seeing you. She says she's your mother." "I'm not available to visitors," I replied calmly. "Please don't send her up." 20 minutes later, he called again. "She's still here making quite a scene. Should I call security?" The old Sarah would have rushed downstairs, quieted the situation, and probably written a check to solve the problem. Today, I simply said, "Yes, please have security escort her out. Thank you." Watching from my window as Mom was gently but firmly led to her car, I felt not triumph but a profound sadness for what our relationship had become. Yet beneath that sadness was the unshakable certainty that I was finally breaking patterns that had damaged us all. 2 days before Christmas, I received a text from Dad that changed everything. "We need to talk as a family. Your mother is ready to listen. Can we meet tomorrow at Lakeside Coffee downtown at 2 p.m.? After consulting with Madison, who offered to be on standby for moral support, I agreed to the meeting. The neutral location was a good sign. They weren't expecting me to come to the house I legally owned but had been uninvited from. The following afternoon found me arriving at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, selecting a corner table with good visibility of the entrance. I ordered a latte and waited, mentally rehearsing the boundaries I needed to establish. They arrived as a unit: Mom, Dad, Eric, and surprisingly, Jennifer. Mom's eyes were puffy from crying, Dad looked exhausted, and Eric radiated hostility. Jennifer nodded almost imperceptibly in my direction. "Thank you for coming," Dad began after they'd settled with their drinks. The formality between us broke my heart a little. "You're welcome," I replied, simply waiting for them to reveal their agenda. Mom jumped in immediately, tears threatening. "Sarah, we had no idea you would react so extremely to a simple change of holiday plans. If we'd known you'd punish us like this—" "Barbara," Dad interrupted gently. "We agreed to start differently." Mom pressed her lips together, visibly struggling to contain herself. Dad turned to me with an attempt at a smile. "Sarah, we've realized there have been some misunderstandings about our arrangements. We've been depending on you financially more than we should have." Eric snorted. "That's putting it mildly." "You have something to add, Eric?" I asked, maintaining a calm I didn't entirely feel. "Yeah, actually." He leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "You've held your financial support over our heads for years, making everyone feel indebted to you. Then the minute you don't get your way about Christmas, you pull the rug out from under us. Real nice." I took a slow sip of my latte, organizing my thoughts. When I spoke, my voice remained steady. "I'd like to share some figures with you," I said, opening a folder I'd brought. "In the past 3 years, I've paid $18,657 toward the mortgage on the house you all live in. I've covered $42,389 in medical expenses primarily for Dad. I've funded every holiday gathering totaling approximately $32,000. I've provided emergency funds of $27,450 for everything from car repairs to utility bills. I slid the documentation forward. That's a total of $210,496 in direct financial support, not including gifts or the family cell phone plan. During this time, I've received exactly 2 thank you cards and countless criticisms about my work schedule, my priorities, and apparently my Christmas gifts being too expensive. The table fell silent. Dad examined the papers with growing discomfort while Mom stared at her coffee. Eric shifted in his seat, his hostile expression wavering. "I've never kept score," I continued softly. "I helped because I love you and could afford to. But I've realized that my help has created an unhealthy dynamic where my value to this family is purely financial." "That's not true," Mom protested weakly. "Isn't it? When you decided I wasn't welcome at Christmas, did anyone consider that I might be hurt, or was the primary concern whether I'd still pay for everything?" No one answered. Then, surprisingly, Jennifer spoke up. "I was there during that conversation," she said quietly. "Eric started it by complaining that Sarah makes everyone uncomfortable with her success. He said, and I quote, 'Christmas would be more relaxed without her judging everyone.'" Eric's face flushed with anger. "You're seriously taking her side now?" "I'm not taking sides," Jennifer replied evenly. "I'm stating facts. You've complained for months about your rich sister while happily accepting her money. You told your parents they should expect more since she got promoted." I felt a rush of gratitude toward Jennifer, whose honesty was forcing acknowledgement of painful truths. "Is that true?" Eric's dad asked, looking genuinely shocked. Eric's defiance crumbled slightly. "You don't know what it's like living in her shadow," he muttered. "Everything comes so easily to her." "Easily," I repeated, finally allowing some emotion into my voice. "I worked 30 hours a week through college while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I've sacrificed vacations, relationships, and sleep to build my career. Nothing about it was easy, but you always succeed," he countered. "Some of us struggle just to get by." "You've been getting by in a house I pay for with utilities I subsidize while working part-time at most," I pointed out. "Your struggle has been cushioned by my financial support." Mom interjected, her defensive posture softening slightly. "We never meant to take advantage, Sarah. It just evolved this way. Each time you helped, it became a little easier to expect the next time." Her admission surprised me. I'd prepared for continued denial, not acceptance. "I've enabled the situation," I acknowledged. "By solving every financial problem immediately, I prevented you from developing alternatives." Dad reached for my hand. Across the table, the first genuine connection since this began. Our deal began. "We've been terrible to you, sweetheart. I've known it for a while but couldn't find the courage to address it. When your mother told you not to come for Christmas, I should have spoken up." "Why didn't you?" I asked, the question that had haunted me for days. He sighed heavily. "Because Eric threatened to move out if you came, and your mother panicked at the thought of losing him. I chose the path of least resistance, as I always do. It was cowardly." Eric stared at the table, his anger seemingly deflated by Dad's candor. "So where do we go from here?" Mom asked tentatively. I laid out the options I'd prepared. "The mortgage has 3 possibilities. You can take over the payments, we can sell the house and split any equity, or I can continue paying with clear boundaries and acknowledgement of my contribution." Their expressions told me they hadn't expected solutions, only a continuation of the status quo. "We can't afford the payments," Mom admitted. "Then perhaps it's time to downsize," I suggested gently. "The house is too large for your needs, and the maintenance is becoming difficult for Dad with his health issues." The conversation continued for nearly 3 hours, delving into uncomfortable truths and possibilities we'd all avoided. Eric finally admitted his resentment stemmed from insecurity about his own life choices. Mom acknowledged her enabling of his dependency. Dad confessed to abdicating his parental responsibility by allowing Mom to make decisions he disagreed with. As afternoon faded into evening, we reached no perfect resolution, but established a framework for moving forward with greater honesty. I left the coffee shop emotionally drained, but lighter, having finally spoken truths I'd suppressed for years. In my car, I called Madison. "It went better than expected," I told her. "We actually talked, really talked." "And you maintained your boundaries?" she asked cautiously. "Yes," I confirmed, watching my family exit the coffee shop through my rearview mirror. For the first time, I think they're actually seeing me, not just my checkbook. The confrontation had been painful but necessary, the first step toward either rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms or accepting its limitations with clear eyes. Christmas morning in Maui dawned with spectacular colors painting the sky. I sat on my private balcony watching the sunrise with a cup of Kona coffee, experiencing a strange mixture of liberation and loneliness. For the first time in my adult life, I had prioritized my needs over my family's expectations. Yet the emptiness of celebrating alone couldn't be entirely filled by tropical beauty. At breakfast in the resort restaurant, I noticed another solo traveler about my age reading a novel at a corner table. Something in her peaceful solitude resonated with me. When she dropped her napkin, I retrieved it, leading to an introduction. "I'm Melissa," she smiled, "here escaping family Christmas drama." "Sarah," I replied, feeling an immediate kinship. "Same, actually." We spent the day together, king to a waterfall where we shared abbreviated versions of our family complications. Melissa had distanced herself from toxic parents years ago, creating boundaries I was just beginning to establish. "The first holiday alone is the hardest," she assured me. "It gets easier eventually. You build your own traditions that bring genuine joy." That evening, as sunset painted the ocean gold, my phone rang with a call from Dad. I hesitated before answering. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "I'm calling just for me, not as the family spokesperson." "Merry Christmas, Dad," I replied, surprised by the tears that sprang to my eyes. "How are you managing?" he answered honestly. "We had a small dinner with your Aunt Susan. Not quite the celebration we're used to, but appropriate given the circumstances." The absence of guilt-inducing comparisons to previous elaborate Christmases I'd funded struck me immediately. "Dad, I'm sorry it came to this," I said softly. "I never wanted to hurt anyone." "I know that, Sarah, and I owe you the biggest apology." His voice cracked slightly. "I failed you as a father by allowing this situation to develop. When you started supporting us financially, I should have ensured it was temporary. Instead, I got comfortable with the arrangement." His candor touched me deeply. "I could have communicated better about how I was feeling," I acknowledged. "Where are you?" he asked. "Your email auto-reply says you're unavailable." "I'm in Maui," I admitted. I decided to do something for myself for once. Instead of the disapproval I half expected, he chuckled warmly. "Good for you, sweetheart. That's exactly what you should be doing." After we hung up, I checked my messages to find a text from Mom. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I didn't realize how much I've taken you for granted. I'm truly sorry for hurting you. Enjoy your holiday. We'll talk when you're ready." Her message contained no demands, no manipulation, just a simple acknowledgement that represented significant growth from our coffee shop confrontation. The week in Maui became unexpectedly healing. Away from family obligations and work pressures, I reconnected with parts of myself long neglected. Melissa and I became fast friends, promising to stay in touch after returning to our respective lives. When I arrived home on New Year's Day, I faced several emails from the mortgage company. My family had made a partial payment, not the full amount, but a good faith effort that surprised and touched me. Accompanying the payment was a letter from all three of them outlining a plan to assume gradually increasing financial responsibility. Over the following weeks, our family underwent a transformation that would have seemed impossible before the Christmas crisis. Eric, shocked into reality by the confrontation, secured full-time employment at a local marketing firm using a reference I'd provided years earlier. Mom acknowledged her role in enabling his dependency and joined a support group for parents of adult children. Dad started standing up for his opinions rather than defaulting to Mom's decisions. By Valentine's Day, I felt ready to visit. The house, still legally mine, felt different somehow. Small economizing measures were evident. The premium cable package, replaced by basic service, store-brand groceries in the pantry, a repaired kitchen chair rather than the new set they'd been hinting for me to fund. We're learning to live within our means, Mom explained without resentment. It's actually somewhat liberating. We established a new financial arrangement. I would continue paying the mortgage for 6 more months while they saved for a down payment on a more appropriately sized condo. The house would be sold, with proceeds split equitably. Eric would find his own apartment by summer, with a clear understanding that occasional help from parents wouldn't become ongoing support. The spring brought another family gathering, smaller, simpler, and infinitely more genuine than our previous elaborate affairs. We shared a potluck meal, each contributing according to ability. The conversation flowed naturally, without the undercurrent of resentment that had previously poisoned our interactions. I never realized how our financial arrangement was hurting all of us, Mom reflected as we washed dishes together. For me, it was easier to accept your money than acknowledge we needed to change our lifestyle. For you, it created a role that wasn't really fair. I enabled it. I acknowledged that solving problems with money was easier than addressing the real issues. We're building something healthier now, she said, squeezing my hand with soapy fingers. She was right. Though our relationship remained a work in progress, with occasional backsliding into old patterns, the foundation had shifted fundamentally. I was no longer valued primarily as a financial resource, but recognized as a daughter and sister with emotional needs of my own. My friendship with Madison deepened as she supported my journey toward healthier boundaries. Jennifer surprisingly remained in touch, eventually dating a colleague I introduced her to. My relationship with Eric evolved slowly, with genuine connection gradually replacing his resentment and my caretaking. The most profound change occurred within me. I learned that genuine generosity comes from choice, not obligation, and that allowing others to face the consequences of their decisions can be an act of love rather than abandonment. Most importantly, I discovered that my worth extends far beyond my financial contributions or professional achievements. As summer approached, I sat in my Chicago apartment balancing my checkbook, a quaint habit in the digital age. The mortgage. Payment for my parents' house was highlighted, one of the final 2 I would make before our transition to new arrangements. Instead of resentment, I felt peaceful certainty that our family was finally moving toward authenticity. True family, I've learned, isn't built on financial dependence or obligation, but on mutual respect. Respect and genuine care for each other's well-being. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give those we love is the space to grow. Even when that growth involves difficult truths and temporary discomfort, the Christmas that nearly destroyed us ultimately became the catalyst for rebuilding something far more valuable than the material security I'd provided for years. A family. Relationship based on truth, respect, and authentic connection. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that ultimately strengthened your family relationships? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most meaningful growth. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with family is an act of love, not abandonment. Thank you for joining me on this journey toward healing and authenticity.